Hello and welcome to the Tai Chi Notebook Podcast. My name is Graham Barlow and I've been practicing martial arts for over 25 years now. On this podcast I talk to some of the people I've met and trained with over that time. In this episode I catch up with my old friend, student and sparring partner, Paul Bowman. Paul is a professor of cultural studies at Cardiff University. He's the author of several books on martial arts, including several about Bruce Lee, and most recently The Invention of Martial Arts, Popular Culture Between Asia and America, which was published by Oxford University Press in 2020. Paul also helped establish the academic journal of Marital Arts Studies and organised conferences for the Marital Arts Studies Research Network. In this chat we reminisce about our times training together, talk about Paul's recent discovery of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and discuss the emergent field of martial arts studies. As you join us, we've just finished a training session in jiu-jitsu and are sitting down with a nice cup of tea and a biscuit for a chat. How very British. Hello Paul Bowman. Welcome to the podcast, third episode of the Tai Chi Notebook Podcast. You're my third guest. How does it feel?
Hello, Graham Barlow. It feels excellent because we're actually physically face to face, which is, it's like in the before times. It's like actually hanging out with people. So it feels like a major event.
I know. And we've just done some like physical training as well.
Yes.
So obviously you put me through my paces a bit on the jiu-jitsu mats. I mean, your reverse De La Riva to Berimbolo was just spectacular.
Yeah, I pretend. I'm constantly just monitoring and pretending that I'm considerably worse than I actually am.
Yes, you con me into falling into your trap.
I just refuse to be graded to the belt that I deserve. Surely I deserve a stripe at least.
Is that what this is all about?
Yeah, this is me. I'm trying to ingratiate myself with the Gracie Barra community so that I can be promoted for celebrity reasons.
You haven't done enough social media posting to deserve a stripe yet, Paul. I think you really need to up your game.
Well, that's the reason I took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is because it was more real than other martial arts, because there's more photography involved.
Way more photography. In fact, your daughter took some photos.
She did. Well, I commanded her to, because the event has to have happened, and the only way it can happen is if I post online about training.
Otherwise, it's not real.
Yeah, exactly. That reality is the simulacrum.
You are decked head to toe Gracie Barra training gear, so I will give you points for that. Not stripe, but you're halfway there to a stripe.
Well, I thought you might punish me if I didn't have my Gracie kit on. So
yeah, it's very important. So we've known each other for a long time. I'm trying to think when we met each other. Was it?
I'd say it was maybe 19 or 20 years ago. I'd been working at Bath Spa as my first lectureship job, and I was learning Tai Chi off a guy there, kind of strange old hippie guy.
Yeah.
And then I got a new job at Roehampton in southwest London, so I couldn't train with him anymore. And actually he recommended that I check out you guys at Bath Tai Chi. So I came along and I was instantly hooked on we went straight away into the kind of ethereal world of push hands, which was because I'd done Tai Chi in lots of different places, and you know these kind of abortive false starts that you have with Tai Chi, and push hands was almost mythical stuff. But on lesson 1, I remember you said to Steve, who was there, he said, let's go straight to 2 hands with Paul. So we did that straight away. Lesson 1, double 2-handed push hands, and I just loved it. And then the Choi Li foot, first lesson of that, I loved it. I was hooked, and we trained every Monday. Some Wednesday and Friday at lunchtimes for a good many years.
Yeah, we used to meet up in the park, didn't we, at lunchtimes?
Yeah.
And just have a bit of a scrap, and then I go back to work and you go back to whatever it was you did.
Yeah. No, that was great.
Teaching students, probably.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I mean, it was a great time. But then so what happened really was that I really catastrophically broke my ankle, and that really screwed up anything Tai Chi. Like, it really made Kung Fu hard, impossible. And then you switched to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so eventually you stopped teaching the class. So I just stopped going because I would turn up injured, lame, and pay my £5 and then be expected to teach a class, and you weren't even there. So it was just like, what the hell's going on here? So then, I went rolling for a few years. I think I would have followed you straight away into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu had it not been for my ankle injury.
Yeah, because you were on crutches for ages, weren't you, as well?
Yeah, the problem was the dislocation. It really made any kind of low stances very, very, very difficult. So you don't want to bob up and down when you're doing Tai Chi, but for a long time, it took me, a long time to stabilise that. A lot of standard Qigong to try and, improve the elasticity in the scar tissue so I could actually just sink.
You were telling me that the standard Qigong really
did.
Yeah.
Because over time you protect one side of your body. So little things like standing up and sitting down, I would be using my other leg for all that.
Yeah.
And the standing Qigong makes you just have to balance equally on each side, and you kind of relearn standing up and sitting down, which it was really therapeutic and really helpful for me. I never really bothered too much with Qigong before that.
Yeah, I think I'd have tried to persuade you to start Jiu-Jitsu earlier than you did, but your ankles just seem to be awfully injured, and in a way that I thought that Jiu-Jitsu was probably dangerous for you to do. You just end up injuring it again.
Well, it probably wasn't. As you know, I went kind of rolling for a few years, and I just was doing things, just training with anyone who trained with me, punching, kicking pads, sparring, and then I discovered eskrima, and eskrima is really high stances. It's almost like the stance is almost like kind of like the wrestler stance, but almost like the start of a running race. And it was a lot easier than any kung fu, and it was all stand up, and it was all quite nimble on the toes rather than crunching down low, and that served me well. But
and then you were into eskrima, so I never really tried to persuade you to start jiu-jitsu because you kind of had something you were doing.
Yeah, and I did want to learn with weapons. I'd always wanted to learn double sticks. So in eskrima, you've got the 2-foot sticks, and I always, for so long, ever since I first saw anything like that, I was like, I've got to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And I learned how to do it, and I loved the weapons work, but I never got into blades. I never got into a lot of the trainers with like training machetes and things. I just hate that. I hate. And I think it's because in my head I've always been clear to myself that I would never hit someone with a knife. It just like it's not me. I don't want to hold one. I don't want to wield one. But I have no qualms about hitting someone with a stick. that's my ethics.
It's more honourable, isn't it?
But yeah, then eventually, just before the pandemic, I really wanted something new. I really wanted a new challenge, and that's when I went to jiu-jitsu and thought, this is it. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the way things have to work out. But it's funny that I started Tai Chi, then you started Tai Chi. And I started jiu-jitsu, and then you started jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's like, at some point we'll sync, but like we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I definitely would. I think that it might have been okay for me to start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it's so on the ground. It's so much on the ground that, and all the ankle stuff comes later. I think, but I can't remember. I put myself back in that time frame. You couldn't touch my ankle. It was like an off switch for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, I just couldn't imagine you.
Yeah, you're right.
Being in a rolling situation where there's some guy's weight on you, and if you can't even touch your ankle, let alone anything, having to push off with it, forget it.
Yeah, you're right. It's fine. It's fine to be.
But it's better
a decade behind you.
I just had a roll with you now, and there's no hint that you've got an injury at all, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's good. It's life. It's fine. It's to keep learning at 50 years old and be a white belt again and start something new.
But then you started jiu-jitsu just when it became banned because of the pandemic, which was perfect timing.
But it was probably lucky because, like anything, I was really obsessive with it. So I started in the November or December 2019, and I just became instantly obsessed. And I was training anytime, where I was going to different clubs everywhere, every lunchtime.
I remember that.
And I was instantly injured. So actually when lockdown came in about March, I needed it. I wouldn't have been able to train because I would have just been taking painkillers and training and getting more injured.
Until you actually properly injured yourself. Yeah.
So I come back to it now and I'm just grateful that there are classes. So I just go twice a week and be thankful.
Yes.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean that's all you need.
Yeah.
Compared to not being able to do it at all, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we know each other.
Yep.
And then while we were doing Tai Chi together, you started to get more and more into writing about martial arts.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of started with Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Is that where it started?
It kind of did. So my practice, my Tai Chi practice with you and with other instructors before that, I became more and more interested in the status and place of martial arts in, kind of British everyday life and what do people understand and think about martial arts. And for a long time, I wanted to work on and write about martial arts, but in terms of media studies, cultural studies, which is what I do. And when I look back through my old files on my computer, I've got dozens of aborted projects where I was trying from about 2000 through to about 2007 to come up with a way that I would be able to do some academic study and academic writing about martial arts, but I don't have the historical knowledge, I don't have the linguistic knowledge, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not an ethnographer, I'm not a sociologist. So eventually I realised that I needed to hang it on something to do with media, because that's what I'm trained in. I'm trained in media analysis and film analysis and television analysis and so on. And so I hooked it on the status of Bruce Lee, who wasn't actually that big a part of my fantasy life. But then I wrote a book about Bruce Lee, and everyone thinks that I'm a Bruce Lee fanatic and a Bruce Lee expert and a film studies person. But it wasn't a book about Bruce Lee films, and it wasn't like I love Bruce Lee, therefore that's all I have to write about. It was more about, if you think about the status of this film actor and martial artist and the impact of his films on the world and the life and the beliefs and the practices of so many people from the 1970s. He was the generation saying just before us, so we grew up always knowing Bruce Lee, always knowing about Kung Fu, and so that it impacted on us, and it had a huge influence in our lives and the generation just before us. So it was more about that, the impact of a film on your life, like a fiction film, a fantasy film, an action film, and how it can change your life, and you can become obsessed with wanting to do spinning kicks and death touches and you fantasize about this stuff. So these fantasies aren't fake. These fantasies have real effects. You watch a Bruce Lee film, you come out and you want to be doing jumping, spinning, back kicks, and
you join a Kung Fu club, don't you?
You join a Kung Fu club, it's like you become kind of infected with this fantasy that impacts on your behaviour, and that's an entire generation internationally, all around the world. So Bruce Lee was the start of it for me, but it was less about Bruce Lee and more about the way that he put into circulation and wider knowledge that these possibilities, you can be this if you just train. That's the kind of message. It might be fake and it might not be true, but you could be invincible. All you need to do is train. You just need to do this stuff. And so that was where it began for me. And I wrote the book, and then...
Which one was that?
The first book that I wrote, the first kind of analysis that I did was in a book called Deconstructing Popular Culture, and I just wrote a chapter on Bruce Lee, and then I loved it so much that I wrote a book called Theorizing Bruce Lee, and then that took so long to appear. It took about 3 or 4 years to actually physically appear. By that stage I'd written another book, essentially from conference papers and other things that I'd been thinking, and that was the second book, which was called Beyond Bruce Lee. And by that stage we were getting close to the birth of what we now call martial arts studies.
Yes, but you also got taken to New York, wasn't it, to be in a film about it?
I did. That was a bit later. That was great.
That was the ultimate jolly.
that was fabulous, actually. That was I think I take this as a lesson in the value of open access publishing. So about a nanosecond after my Theorizing Bruce Lee was published, PDFs appeared online of it. So the book itself cost about 30, 40 quid, right?
Yeah, they're quite expensive.
But someone somewhere in the publishers had leaked a PDF online.
Yeah.
And so I went, okay, fair enough. I never make any royalties on anything anyway. So I just sort of put the PDF on my website as well, and people put it everywhere. It was a free download. And then this and immediately, therefore, I started getting loads of emails from weirdos and freaks saying, who would have won in a fight, Bruce Lee or Muhammad Ali? Oh, leave me alone. But then eventually his film director contacted me and said, and I thought it was because I had the BBC and people like that contacting me, and what they want to do is milk you for information. And then don't give you any credit or anything, or no jolly of any kind.
Yeah, I've had the BBC do the same to me.
They phone you every day and they go, so another thing I've been thinking, do you know about this? And you go, yes.
Yeah.
And then and you go, can I have a researcher's credit on this programme? And they say no.
They're very entitled. they start their conversation with, here's so-and-so from the BBC, as if that means you will now help me.
Won't take up too much of your time, and then 3 hours later you're still going, oh.
I've done radio interviews that were half an hour long about because my area is technology, about a technology subject, and they literally used 5 seconds of it, which is me saying one thing, and then but we did a whole half-hour interview. What was the point of that? Yeah. What did I get out of that? Nothing.
Yeah, but I got a free jolly to New York.
Yeah, so this guy you get a jolly to New York.
This guy said we've got a Skype, so we Skyped, and then he said we're doing this documentary, we wanted to come to England, but we couldn't. So will you?
Shame.
He said the closest we get to England is New York. Will you come to New York? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Let me just check my diary.
Yeah.
Let me
Are you paying?
So me and my daughter flew to New York this was the Sunday. Then it was all confirmed by the Wednesday. Flew on the Friday. We had the weekend to get orientated. Then we filmed on the Monday. Then we flew back, and it was.
I think that's even on. I think it's on YouTube now.
Is it? I am Bruce Lee.
I am Bruce Lee, the film.
Yeah.
But you're very good in it.
But it was so the director was going, I want to call this I Am Bruce Lee, but the producers want to call it something like really boring. It was something else like Bruce Lee, the man, the legend, the myth, blah blah. And he said, so if you feel like at any stage you want to say the words I am Bruce Lee, that might help me. So I found a way to say that. And then I was the only person in the film who said I am Bruce Lee. So
oh, you cunning devil, you.
Yeah.
So the Bruce Lee period of your career, shall we call it kind of leads into martial arts studies, which is I called it a discipline the other day, and you went, no, it's a field of study.
Yeah. So
what exactly is martial arts studies?
So I first read the term in a book that was called something like Asian Tradition. It was called Embodied Knowledge, Asian Traditions in a Transnational World or something, and it's edited by Doug Farrer and John Wayland Bridge, and they talked about martial arts studies, and what they'd done is they'd looked around the range of styles of studying and writing about martial arts across the disciplines. So you've got anthropological approaches, history approaches, you've got some media approaches and so on. And they just sort of looked at that and said, well, that's all different kinds of martial arts studies. And I thought, that's a cool term, actually. That's the kind of thing I need to organise my thinking. So I was editor of a journal, and I said, let's do an issue called Martial Arts Studies. So I just kind of put up a flag, call for papers, circulated it around the internet and on mailing lists and everything. Martial Arts Studies. How do we study martial arts? Across the disciplines, and what's the place of media in martial arts? And it was a brilliant issue, still available online. If you go to Cardiff University Press, you find issue 5 of Joe Meck Journal, and it's there. Great stuff. And then it was really exciting. We decided we'd try and have a conference. So I organised a conference for the following. And at the time I was also writing a book, which I thought, I'll call this book Martial Arts Studies, and it'll be about what would martial arts studies be? Because, how do you study them? The dominant way to study martial arts, as you know, the most accessible way is historically. So people want to know what's the true history.
Lineage.
So people want to know their lineage, but even people who want to know their lineage get a bit fixated on the kind of mythos of that. So they might be tracing it back to mythical ancestors or the Shaolin Temple. But then there's that's more like lineage fetishism. But then there's actually the historical studies, so people will look at how did this stuff actually develop, what's the complex social and military and economic situations that make these things happen. And then there's the kind of anthropological or ethnographic approaches, which involve people going off and studying and going, in this culture in Singapore or Shanghai or wherever, this group of blah blah blah, they behave like this and they believe this and they do this. But I was quite interested in getting the sort of media and cultural studies approach. Like, these are massive media texts in our lives. Most of our introductions to martial arts were through some film or something. Nowadays it's through computer games, but for us it was films, television programs like Kung Fu, Monkey, all of this stuff. This was where we learned about Asian martial arts. And later on it was Chuck Norris and Van Damme, but people dismiss that and discount it as unimportant because it's not real. So, but I think that it is real, because it just is. It's the thing that animates. It's like that. It becomes the engine that drives your passion. Like, to do the perfect kick like Bruce Lee would do, to do the perfect technique like Chuck Norris or Steven Seagal or whoever it was would do. So I decided the way forward was to pull people together and to say, let's expose our different styles of scholarship to each other.
Yeah.
And so anthropologists learn from historians, learn from psychologists, learn from well-being and health people, learn from media.
A bit like Wayne's World, isn't it? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Or like Kumite.
Yeah. But they don't seem to argue very much. Like, I don't know, you half expect a group of martial artists to get together and then to all start disagreeing furiously. But they seem very harmonious when I've seen them all talking.
I think you came to the second conference.
Second conference, yeah.
For a bit. The first conference was a bit like the Wild West, and I had
was
some... it was great, and everybody was lovely, but nobody knew each other, and there were things like, there were kind of groups of people would turn up, so like, because in Germany they'd been doing martial arts studies in German for a good 5 years beforehand. They were having annual conferences, they had grants, they had everything. And then there's also, obviously in East Asia they've got what you might translate as martial arts studies, a very well established academic field. So people came over and were like, well, who the hell are you and what the hell's going on? Who do you think you are? Everyone was smiley and friendly, but it was sometimes a bit macho as well.
Okay.
I got reports of people being a little bit too macho, and so by the time the next year came, everyone knew each other a lot more. They were a lot more relaxed about it, a lot more friendly.
Yeah, that's what I went to.
Yeah, and so in that one as well, I think we were doing things like push hands in the morning. I think Adam Frank was there, and Adam Frank is the author of a great book called Tai Chi Chuan and the Little Old Chinese Man.
I just listened to his talk yesterday. Actually, he's one on the identity.
Yeah.
That he gave.
Yeah,
very good.
So that was a really great conference. But my interest has always been in bringing people together to interact with each other. A lot of people beforehand, and still today, they like to produce a little kingdom and go, you join this club, you pay these fees, and I'll give you a position on the committee of, and it's like, no, we don't need that. What we need is to have a very broad-ranging discussion across universities, across disciplines, so that we can produce the best scholarship possible, and we can escape from the kind of pathetic mythological stuff and the a lot of the macho stuff that you still do get, and a lot of the what you call Orientalism, where people kind of fantasize about misty mountains in ancient China and hermits living up hills, and that's where it all comes from. We get away from that. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So a lot of that though is I'm thinking of Taekwondo now, where it's like government funded, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have this imaginary lineage that never existed.
Well, Taekwondo is a very interesting example, because you can say anything you like about Taekwondo, but it's funded by the South Korean government. It's funded by Samsung. It's the major kind of export and kind of tourist import of South Korea. It's a hugely important economic identity, and it's connected with Korean national identity. So it's all about PR. It's all about the international status of South Korea. It was. Someone shared a thing online the other day. You probably saw it. It was the display team on America's Got Talent. Someone shared it. And it was. It's phenomenal stuff. It's ultra acrobatic, but it's a spectacular kind of cash cow for so many different institutions.
Yeah.
but it's a problematic martial art, as we all know. But I think it speaks the truth of martial arts in the way that Scientology speaks the truth of religion. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like it's equivalent to sort of Scientology.
It's just speaking the truth, not in the way they think it is.
Well, yeah. I think so. It's a really interesting study, I think.
The Scientology of martial arts. There you go. We're making friends all over the world.
We are. This is what it's about. It's diplomacy.
Yeah.
Friendship.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I love Taekwondo, and I know, you know, some of my best friends do Taekwondo. You know, that kind of
Yeah.
classic thing.
I do Taekwondo.
Yeah, I used to do Taekwondo. But it's a really interesting and really clear study about the importance of martial art in certain contexts. We don't have anything like it in Britain, but in Japan, in China, in South Korea, in other countries, you know, these will be in, you know, the Philippines. These will be they're national sports, national arts, funded, hugely important, crucial for national identity and narratives of history and so on. We don't have that in Britain.
No, we don't have anything like that, do we?
Not really, no.
We have, you know, we've had our own cultural, like the Beatles, you know, and our music. That was like a cultural export that had a kind of soft power.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything that's martial arts related, do we, really?
No, I mean, you know, there's a long history of boxing and, you know, maybe wrestling, but it's not central to our national narrative in any way that's sustained by. I mean, in South Korea, I've written lots about this as well. They do wonderful things, like they kind of, there was an older martial art called Taekyon, and they kind of fund that.
Which you
as
studied.
well. Which I went to South Korea and had a
go at it.
Yeah,
I saw you wearing the Taekyon outfits.
Yeah, I've got an honorary black belt in Taekyon.
A black belt. Oh,
Honorary black belt.
You got promoted quickly,
I
didn't
did.
you?
And honestly, so I got to the class early, and because I was a visiting dignitary, because I'd just been at a conference there, the guy decked me up in this strange uniform.
It looked a bit like lederhosen or something.
And put a black belt, put black sash around my waist, and then his students start turning up, and they're like, "What the bloody hell's going on?" And then we started
Who's this
training.
foreigner that's got a black belt?
And then we started training, and I was absolutely useless, and I was just like mystified. Like, so this guy's turned up in a black belt. He can't do the first thing.
And he's got his uniform on backwards.
Yeah. But it was great. I think I would study that if I was in South Korea. Really interesting footwork. Like there's people talk about using your feet as hands, but it was almost like you're always standing, and the flexibility is amazing. But it's not like Taekwondo where you jump around, flying, kicking and everything. You're just sort of like folding you up as if you've got like a big cardboard box and you're just trying to fold it so you can get it in the bin. It's essentially what he did to me for an hour and a half.
Just stamped on you.
Just folded me up, and then I'll get back up, and you know. And but the hands were very much like it's like if you interact with someone who knows, you know, Wing Chun or Tai Chi, that kind of, and you're going for that more of a push handsy or sticky hands type thing. Really heavy. There's no kind of pugilistic whack kind of. It's just sinking and weight and that kind of whole body involvement in crushing somebody up like they're a piece of paper or something.
Yeah, that sounds completely unlike Taekwondo, doesn't it?
Very, very different from Taekwondo.
But it's meant to be the historical ancestor.
But it sort of isn't, because I mean, you know, it's like saying it's what it is. It's you know, confirmation bias, isn't it? It's the history of Taekwondo, as lots of people have shown, like, you know, Alex Gillis and like Udo Mernig have written these histories of Taekwondo, which show that it was a post-Japanese invention, because all the Korean soldiers and officers, they'd all been taught Japanese martial arts because of the Japanese occupation. They all knew Shotokan, they all knew a bit of different forms of jiu-jitsu, and when the Japanese left, the Koreans hated them so much that they had to try and obscure that and say, no, this is what we're doing now is indigenous. So they look back, and there is a thing called Taekyon with big kicks. And so they go, oh, well, that's what this is then. So we'll do these original, authentic kicks. But it's not. It's just, it starts off as a flashy, anti-Japanese Shotokan.
Yeah.
And it goes from there, which is understandable.
National trauma, isn't it?
It is.
It's trying to process the trauma of war, isn't it? All that kind of stuff. And
they've had that whole idea. It's kind of like a post-colonial problem, which you've seen in all countries that have been colonised. The different things have been done with their history, the language has been changed, the archives have been eradicated or controlled by someone else. So you see in India, you see in all these formerly colonised places where you go, well, they've eradicated our history. They've cut off these organic traditions and changed them in different ways. What the hell do we do? How do we invent ourselves as a nation? And I think, unfortunately, the South Koreans kind of just decided to say, well, all the good stuff in Japan actually originally came from South Korea. And we taught kendo to the... We designed the swords. They stole it from us.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll...
And it's been going so long, traditions, that you can always find some point in history where there was a famous Korean sword maker.
Yeah. It was him.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the same in China as well.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Chinese nationalism is the driving force in many of the claims made about Chinese martial arts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing that strikes me about martial arts studies is there always seems to be two sides to it. There's the Asian martial arts, and then there's the European martial arts.
Yeah.
And your most recent book, just remind me of the title.
Oh, that was the invention of martial arts.
The invention of martial
there
arts.
There's a copy.
Yeah, there's a copy. Yeah, that's one. So in there, you're kind of arguing that by martial arts we mean Asian martial arts by the term.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's all these sort of people reenacting European things with suits of armour and swords and stuff.
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
So in the past, people have criticised me because when I've used the term martial arts, I've always implicitly meant Asian martial arts, the stuff that we saw in the late 60s and early 70s and all the way through, where it was ninjas and kung fu and karate and people have said, but hang on, all cultures have, all lives matter, all cultures have
all martial arts matter.
Yeah, all martial arts matter, exactly. All cultures have their martial traditions, and my response is like, well, yes, I know that, but the very term martial art really entered popular culture, popular knowledge and popular discourse in the wake of Asian martial arts. And the term, you can't really find it being used much before the 60s. So martial arts is a literal direct translation of the Japanese term bugei. It means martial arts, right? But so it is used, and I've got some old books up here that from the 60s in which people are talking about martial arts, but they're talking about Japanese martial arts, so they're using a literal translation of the Japanese term.
Yeah.
But until about 1973, you don't see that term becoming the umbrella organising term of what people are doing. So people might do jiujutsu, they might do judo, they might do karate, they might do whatever it is they might do, but they don't think of that as a martial art as such. It's only really in the early 70s that people start to group all these things together as a thing called martial arts. And that, in the first instance, referred to Asian martial arts, the stuff that we are seeing in films and in the Avengers and on television. And then it becomes the term that organises the way people think about these things. So it has a lot of cultural baggage and a lot of connotations. And yes, of course, there are long European traditions and traditions that can be resurrected, and then you've got pancration and you've got all these different things. But the term martial arts really wasn't in circulation before Bruce Lee. So again, and probably Bruce Lee's work should be credited as being a huge influence, like a huge driver of that. So the posters for Enter the Dragon say it's the first American-produced martial arts spectacular. And then in his earlier film, Way of the Dragon, he's talking to his cousin or girl or love interest, I can't remember who she is, and he's going, every day I practice martial arts. And he's working out and showing off his torso. And it wasn't, even experts like Don Draeger and people like this weren't using the term in titles of their books before 1973. So that presumably it's like a term just catches on, like people start using a term.
Yeah. And
you can't quite place the origin of it, but in all the historical archival research that I've done, it's not. Yes, it is a specialist term. It's a literal translation of a Japanese term, but it's not being used the way that we use it now. Yeah. Or we have used it since about 1973. It's what I call a discursive entity. Like it's a new thing that you can be. You can be a martial artist like you can be a hipster. You know, you can't be a punk before, 1977. You can't be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, of course you could have been, but there's no name for what that thing was, and you didn't identify as it. So it's a term that I've tried to be clear about. I never say that no one was doing martial arts before the 70s. That's not the point.
That's not what you mean, is it?
So it changes in status.
Yeah.
It's like there's always, in one sense, there's always been MMA, but there wasn't MMA until it caught on as a thing called MMA.
Yeah.
Thanks to the presenters of the UFC who started to talk about mixed martial arts.
Yeah. See, this is another discussion.
You've had this discussion before, haven't you?
With Byron.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy on my previous podcast. He's involved in the Wushu Federation. Who's trying to get Wushu into the Olympics, and he writes books. What he was doesn't do it anymore, but he was writing books of rules about styles, things that are allowed and in a competition format. Here are the rules, and you have to write it in a kind of very legal sort of way. We're having a discussion about whether MMA was a style or a format. And my argument was, it's now a style because it's a thing. And it's quite similar to what you're saying about, MMA may have existed, but it wasn't a thing until it enters the popular consciousness. And like today, you could say, I'm going to my MMA class, and it doesn't sound wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't say I'm going to my MMA rules class.
It's true. It becomes a hybrid identity. Everything's a sort of hybrid identity. Before they were calling it MMA, they were using different terms. There were all these like shoot fighters and this and that.
Shooty box.
There was also
Brazilian thing, isn't
there was all sorts of things. It's a term. It catches on, and I guess in the context of a kind of 3-letter or 3-syllable fetishistic association like the UFC, then MMA is going to work.
It was originally called cage fighting. That's what people called it until the UFC decided that the media image of people fighting in cages had to be avoided at all costs. So all the UFC presenters are banned from using the words cage fighting. So you're not allowed to say it. So that term has fallen away.
Yeah. So when the first UFC was 1993, and if I've done a lot of research through the British press, the British media, and they're not using that term MMA until it doesn't really appear in national press until they start to get excited about Conor McGregor. Really? Before that, these stories are few and far between in the British press, and they'll keep talking about cage fighters. Bare knuckle cage fighters, no holds barred cage fighters, because
kids fighting in a cage. Yeah, that's the most sensationalist story you'll find.
Yeah. So MMA is definitely a thing. You can go and.
As soon as you said Conor McGregor and MMA, then I suddenly thought, well, that's an area that's ripe for martial arts studies to look at, isn't it? The MMA becoming a thing in the popular consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, my PhD student Kyle Barrowman, he's a former doctor now, Dr. Kyle Barrowman. He is a kind of MMA obsessive, a UFC obsessive, and he's constructed that the kind of emergence of the history of the emergence of that term, and he looks at the transcripts of the fights of the presenters. And they're scrabbling about for terms to use for it, and eventually they hit upon it, and they're like, "Oh, this works," and they start to call it mixed martial arts, not just cross training anymore, or whatever. But I mean, that history's there to be written and disagreed about, and there is plenty of that goes on. People do this. We said we don't disagree with each other, but actually, I think that there's plenty of things that
maybe you don't do it in public.
Maybe they do it nicely, I guess. I mean, I find that whenever anyone says anything about the UFC or about MMA, there are a lot of people who feel that they have the authoritative knowledge that actually contradicts that. It's a bit like everyone knows that they are the only people who know the true truth of Tai Chi Chuan, and it's like only my lineage and only my teacher and only my. So I know the
Everyone
truth.
else lost the secrets, but we kept them. You know,
everything that you say is but everything that I say is really true.
So I'm just used to discussion forums on martial arts, not without academics in them, and it's just like chaos basically. You know, it's just people going insane and shouting at each other endlessly. Well, compared to that, I find the academic disagreements to be incredibly civilized and.
Yeah, you do sometimes get, some rowdiness in different contexts.
So how? I mean, what are you going to do? What are you looking at next, and how do you get your ideas for what topic to research next?
Well, I was before the pandemic hit. I was personally. Well, there's two ways. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can either look around and see what's kind of on trend, right? And you can try and keep up with that, but I find that to be kind of stultifying and a little bit claustrophobic. And I have learned to just go with what I find fascinating. So when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I found so many things to do with the physical act of the difference between this training and any other martial arts training I had known to be quite profound and to have a connection to some really strong identity issues that I hadn't really seen people writing about properly. So I was getting ready to, I was starting to apply for ethical kind of, permission to carry out this sort of research where I was going to be thinking about, the boundaries that are transgressed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu are real stuff to do with intimacy, masculinity, pride, arrogance, and you've got all the different negotiations of friendship and so I just found the whole thing to be quite compelling. So I was about to do that, and then lockdown came. And I had a crushing identity crisis, as I'm sure.
so everyone listening to this podcast did as well.
And then I didn't know what to do. But what I found recently to be quite interesting that emerged through lockdown, and this might just be to do with the algorithms within which I am being manipulated and abused by social media, but was what seems to me to be a real thing rather than a simulation, is this resurgence of a kind of neo-orientalist mumbo-jumbo. So instead of Facebook trying to sell me different kind of online Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu courses now, it's trying to sell me Qigong, and it's trying to sell me meditation, movement, and this kind of weird hippie well-being thing. And I think that we've reached a sort of new stage where in this computer-mediated well-being universe, and mystical orientalist mumbo-jumbo is coming back in a big way. And so I personally am now more interested in looking at this as a phenomenon, a kind of sort of pseudo-ecological kind of crypto-racist, I suppose. It comes from the mystical East. I'm interested in the fact that this whole mystical East thing never goes away. It's like you think you've killed it, you think you've busted the myths, and there it is again. It pops up and it goes, this ancient Qigong that we just invented again in a new way.
I've seen some of those, because you sent me some of those videos going, my God, have you seen this?
I think what I said was, does this shit turn up in your newsfeed?
Yeah, it does. It does turn up in my newsfeed. And then after you tagged me in one of them, it definitely, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
It definitely turned up every day. But it's you can just tell they don't know what they're doing, and whatever it is they're doing wrong, because their postures look wrong. They're fitness models.
They're beautiful young people.
Yes,
doing impossible things.
Look incredibly healthy, but they're kind of in all the wrong stances, and you can just look at someone and tell they don't know what they're doing. They just don't look like they know what they're doing.
It's that thing. It's a weird thing that it's quite easy to see the trick. It's like I also get adverts for parallettes. And there'll be an advert for like these two pieces of metal or something that you can do, handstands on, holding two pipes. And you can do buy these bits of metal and you'll be like an Olympic gymnast. I'm not entirely sure that's what's going to happen. It's going to be two more pieces of crap in my shed.
Yeah, exactly. Which you won't use. Reminds me of those. Remember David Carradine did a series of adverts for, it was like a thing you held in your hand and twisted.
Yeah.
And it was just a stick.
Oh yeah.
But it was like a Tai Chi stick, and
Yeah.
you just go with the flow. And but David, it's just a stick. You're just holding a stick. I mean, I wonder how many people brought that thinking they were going to achieve enlightenment.
Well, at different stages, people would, but I mean, this is the thing that interests me: the way that there are certain kinds of, like, if I call them energies, don't think of me as a hippie. I mean, there's certain, you kind of washed along by certain cultural currents and forces where you kind of go, I'll buy that stick.
I need it in my life.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
This thing will provide the answer. But I always go with my research interests, and my research interests have to come from my actual interests. And I think that the moment has passed for me to really marvel and revel in the difference of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think if I'd been able to do it then...
Yeah.
But now...
That's a shame, really. I mean, because
I took a lot of notes. So
I think there is so much to talk about when a beginner starts Jiu-Jitsu, because you instantly break down all the societal barriers you've built up your whole life about physically being close to somebody, and then also there's someone trying to kill you at the same time, and it's you can literally see people's brains frying, just with the weirdness of the whole.
And you have to confront so many things that you didn't even know were there. Like I always knew I was a bit claustrophobic. But you don't know you're claustrophobic until you've got like an 18-stone hairy-chested
sweaty man
crushing down their horrible hairy chest on your face while they're trying to inch their body up and separate your arms so that they can do something terrible to your joints. And you go, Jesus Christ, and you tap and they go, why have you tapped? And you're like,
it's because I'm panicking.
I'm terrible, because you disgust me. You're horrified.
But also, it's how quickly that becomes normal is another weird thing.
Yeah.
How quickly it becomes normal that a man's sweat has dripped off his bald head and landed in your eyeball, and you just go, whatever, and just carry on. Like in any other situation, you'd be doing some sort of, I'm revolted and dancing around the room going, ugh.
I mean, there's stuff like that in other martial arts. Like, say, there's an academic called Dale Spencer, and he talks about body callousing. So if you're doing MMA training or Thai boxing training, you just have to toughen up, and it's that simple. So when I was doing Eskrima, remember I'd been doing it for maybe 6 months or a year or something, and I was sparring with my instructor, and he like battered me, and I was like, oh, ow, Jesus, whatever, and then go, and he went, you're improving, and I said, yeah, and he said, yeah, 3 months ago you've been rolling around on the ground going, oh, my ankle, But so like in Eskrima, there's a lot of hitting each other with sticks, but you're not hitting each other with sticks. You're drilling so that. But when you do accidentally get whacked on the thumb or on the elbow or on
the fingers, hurt so much, don't they?
You get used to it and you just go, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you see these chefs in these restaurants and they're getting flicked water and fat's getting flicked out, and they're not bothered. Yeah. And it's like you learn different reactions to things. But in my experience, they were all forms of toughening up, becoming tougher. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there are lots of different forms of intimacy that you have to negotiate, that you don't in other martial arts. Like if we're just doing stand-up and I kick you in the head and you go, oh, then that's it. We're no closer to each other.
No.
But if you've crept up my body and choked me and I had to tap, then that's a much more intimate and kind of...
Yeah, and also both sexes are involved in jiu-jitsu as well, so...
Yeah.
So you've got the whole, like, women are basically hugging you tight and
beating you.
Crushing, yeah. Well, that's the other thing is the male ego and being tapped by a woman and the some men would rather die than admit a woman beat them at something, and it's almost like it's not a conscious reaction. They just, I mean, if they had time to intellectualize it, they probably wouldn't think like that. But it's just the initial, I'm going to literally throw you across the room rather than just accept the fact you beat me.
Well, I think that a lot of martial arts have this discourse about no ego, and I think that in the no ego stuff in say in Tai Chi push hands is different to the no ego in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or other martial arts, because in push hands your no ego is no intention. Like I'm not to just decide what I'm going to do next. You have to just do what feels, what flows. Like, oh, there's the armbar, or there's the sweep, or whatever. Whereas in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu you have to have no ego in the sense of you have to be prepared to lose. You just have to come to terms with that, or you can't. You won't come back next week.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm a white belt. I'm being beaten by women who are also white belts, and you know, it's like I can live with that.
Yeah, but some people can't.
Yeah, but if you can't, then you don't go back.
You don't go back. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people don't go back.
Yeah.
Because they can't take it's not necessarily the physical strengthening that's required. I mean, there is a lot of physical strengthening that's required. Like the first year I did jiu-jitsu, I ate every day. And then after about a year, your body just kind of just gets used to it, and then it doesn't hurt anymore, you know. Yeah. But there's also the mental side. But at the same time, I don't think it works for everyone. Certain people that are naturally tough and hard and do well, even from their first days in jiu-jitsu, they're good. Just because they're super fit, athletic, young.
Yeah, rugby players or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, some of those people never need to lose their ego because the situation never arises for them, really. And so they can go all the way up to a high level belt and still be like, you know, an absolute tyrant. Yeah. So I don't think it's a universal process in losing ego. I think it works for some people, but I've definitely seen that it doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah. No, I'm very used to losing. It's funny that, you know, people ask you about different styles and which is the best and blah blah blah, and I always say, well, I've never ever been able to beat my instructors, whatever style I've gone in and tried to learn. It's like, and I don't think so. Daniel Mraz in episode 1 was talking about the way you kind of pulled into this zone of simulation where there's trickery and there's persuasion, and then it's like you walk into Darren Brown's studio or something. You know you're not in control there, but nonetheless, I've never beaten my instructor. Because I always choose good instructors. the reason that I stick with them is because I can't beat them. Yeah. Not that I ever hope to beat them. But
I mean, that's what I've always looked for in a martial arts teacher. Well, the first, not the only thing, but the first thing I always looked for was, has he got something he can teach me? Yeah. Like, has he just defeated me easily? Yes, he has. Okay. So, I mean, that's good enough for me. Yeah. You know, I don't necessarily care about his lineage, but if he can do that, I want to learn how to do that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that each new style, it's like the Chinese sort of element. One thing overcomes the other. So you go to a different style, and you kind of re-traumatized in a different way. Like, so, you walk in to a club and you go, oh yeah, I'd like to learn Eskrima, and I've been doing Kung Fu and Tai Chi for all these years, and I've got some Taekwondo and blah blah blah, and they just destroy you. And you're like, back to the drawing board then. And you think, well, what is it? Why did I get beaten? And that can be quite traumatic in many ways. Like, I didn't know that I was quite little until I started doing Eskrima. Because when we did Kung Fu and Tai Chi, there's a sort of respect. And also even kickboxing and things, it's just like, tap, got you there. Yeah. But in Eskrima, they'll just use your... If you're bigger and longer and heavier, just use that. Just crush someone, just push them out of the way. Yeah. But we never did that in Kung Fu. We were always quite nice and respectful to each other.
Trying to use technique
instead
of just bullying each
other. Yeah. But in Eskrima, they're like, well, sort it out, deal with it. I'm bigger than you, stronger than you. What are you going to do about it? Yeah. Hit you with this stick.
Well, everyone's the same height on the ground. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Restart the grind.
Yeah, Master Ken. He's in a new film or something, isn't he?
I love Master Ken. Yeah. I love martial arts comedy as well. Anything. I find that really interesting to ask the question, like, when you laugh at this, what are we laughing at? What is the joke?
Ourselves, I think.
Yeah, I think so. With Master Ken it is.
Yeah, and if you're not laughing, you're part of the problem, I think.
Or you're outside of the circle of intelligibility.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Master Ken is funny to martial artists, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how normal people watch him and laugh, because...
I don't know if they do though. I mean,
do they?
I don't know. I think that he is the thinking martial artist.
Like, if my mum was watching him, would she even get the joke or understand it was a joke?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think that if you're not familiar with the discourses around these different styles, then maybe it's just kind of some quite bad physical comedy. It's not even that good. It's not like Charlie Chaplin or something.
No, it's not laugh a minute stuff, is it? It slowly builds to a kind of overall humorous effect, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that the next level is not the next level in terms of professionalism, but the next stage is where you get to someone like Sensei Seth, who does it all like with no budget and performs all the different characters himself. That's entirely and only makes sense if you're absolutely immersed in the martial arts world, because
it's in jokes, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nothing but in jokes, and it's what he's kind of tapped into, what different styles think about each other, and the cliches and stereotypes about different styles. I find that hugely interesting academically. Like, I can reflect on that, and I want to research that. I'm actually working on a possible research project with a guy called George Jennings, looking at comedy and humour in and around martial arts contexts. And what are we allowed to laugh at? What are we not allowed to laugh at? What can you say about your own style when your teacher is present? You know what I mean? And what things are just off limits?
Yeah, I mean, certain things are always off limits, aren't they? But I think I've always thought there was a lot of humour just in martial arts in general. Like, when you go to a jiu-jitsu class and someone will put their toe in your mouth, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Because, oh, sorry about that. It's like, and you both have a kind of good laugh about it, and there's all moments of humour that occur almost naturally, and then someone will do a technique wrong and land on their head or something, and it's genuinely funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, what place does that have in the actual structure of the class? Is it meant to be there?
Well, there's different sorts of structure as well. I mean, I think that in some clubs there's an ethos of being light-hearted, and in other places there isn't. So in some clubs that I've trained, and some styles, almost like the only person allowed to make a joke is the instructor. If you make a joke, or you're not just deadly serious the whole time, then you're somehow breaking the ethos of the place.
And if you don't laugh at his joke...
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, you're so funny.
But because some places are quite toxic or quite insecure in terms of hierarchy, and hierarchy is played out, and there has to be someone who has to be the butt of the joke. We have a mutual friend who we won't mention, who is always the butt of the joke.
Yes, yeah.
And that's an awful structure to be in. It's not like... So,
especially when they accept it and it becomes part of their identity.
That's me then.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, at what point do you grow out of that and become the instructor yourself? Where, and when you do become the top of the tree, do you then have a guy that's the butt of your jokes, or do you break the cycle?
Yes, do all abuse victims go on to abuse? It's like, well, no, they don't. But yeah, so there's a kind of power dynamic to it sometimes, maybe not always, but in some places there might be sexist jokes, there might be jokes about ableist jokes, there might be class jokes. Every time I said the word hook, jab cross hook, they would roll around laughing because I'm the only one who pronounces it correctly. So all these stupid southerners saying hook, jab cross hook, no hook, double OK hook. But so you see a lot of different dimensions in there. My hunch is that if you can somehow get access, a window on the types of humour that are circulating, and the who's allowed to say what to who, then you can learn a lot about the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some instructors use humour in different ways as a way of teaching. They'll poke fun at themselves or whatever, but I find that quite interesting as well. It's just like a little detail about martial arts that it's like a little thread, a little lead that I'll follow and see if it leads me anywhere.
Pull that thread and see what unravels. But it's also like the Sensei Seth stuff where they laugh about other styles.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all remember those. The instructor coming, oh, you wouldn't believe what I saw in jiu-jitsu the other day. Not like what we do.
We do proper jiu-jitsu.
Or I saw this karate guy and he was standing like this.
But it can,
that'll never work.
It can often reflect. It can often relate to your own anxieties and your own insecurities. So, when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and my wife would say, I can't believe you started that after the things you used to say about it. And I was like, what things did I say about it? I've blotted something from my memory, right? And she said, no, you used to just diss it all the time. I'm like, but did I? Okay. But I can remember when we would do
I think I did too. I think I used to diss it all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it was because I was indoctrinated by the people I was training with.
Yeah.
That it was
a waste of time.
A waste of time because, if you went on the floor, the guy's friends would just come along,
come and kick you in the back of the head.
Yeah, but they probably would, but that doesn't invalidate the whole, what happens if you accidentally slip over and you're on the floor and you want to get up?
Yes.
Surely
what happens if you're on the floor?
Yes. What happens if the fight starts? You were lying down.
Yeah. But I remember when it would often come up in eskrima, and so eskrima is all about that real front line of aggression, and you just, as soon as someone's in range, you destroy them with a weapon if you possibly can. And I remember more than once my instructor saying, and you do this, bang bang, and they can be as good at jiu-jitsu, they can be as good at Brazilian jiu-jitsu as they like because they're unconscious. And it's what does that little witty dig at? It reflects an anxiety.
It's an insecurity, isn't it?
Because it's jiu-jitsu touches on the limit point of that style. Yes, there were people there who were good grapplers and good ground fighters, but they'd all had a basis in wrestling or judo or whatever, and they were fine at it. But you probe the limits of the discipline, and people get very sensitive about it, and they have to attack with humour.
Yes,
you just cuddle each other, you lot.
Yeah, it's just men hugging.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I used to say the same things, but you just get more mature as you grow up, and I guess some people just don't grow up.
Yeah. It's also like your last guest, Byron, was saying, you have to taste it, you have to try it. You can't just go, I'm not eating that food because it smells funny. You have to taste it. Like you said, you want to taste Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then you got a taste for it. Which is it's what happened to me. I tried it and went, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. Yeah.
I can do this every day.
This is the most fun I've ever had.
This is like the bit of the Tai Chi class that I really liked, but it's the whole class.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I tried a bit of judo in the past, and the kind of randori that I really liked was just on your knees. So you're not going to get smashed from a great height into the ground. And I was like, so Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is mainly just start fighting on the ground.
It's mainly the bit where you don't get injured.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, judo's great, but you just don't see many old people doing judo, do you?
Not really. Not
kids.
Really. They'll teach the kids class, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but also most judo schools are just kids classes. They don't actually have an adults class. Because all the adults are broken.
I don't like
apart from the Olympic Village
Yeah.
up in Bath, where the professionals train.
What haven't we covered today?
We've done everything. There's nothing left. We can leave it there. I think that's.
So we've trained. We've talked a little bit about Chinese martial arts and just loads of other stuff. Got a lot of stuff off our chest.
Yeah, both sleep easier tonight.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Pleasure having you.
Excellent. Thank you for the lesson, and thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. And I look forward to reading wherever your research takes you next.
Cheers, Craig.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you for joining us. You can find out more about the Tai Chi Notebook podcast at www.thetaichinotebook.com. You can support us by giving our podcast a positive review on iTunes and our page a like on Facebook. Just search for the Tai Chi Notebook to find us. Until next time, enjoy your training.